This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday morning Mac, Jack, Doc, and Pags debate show. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the NFL because it's Super Wild Card Weekend. And so let's welcome in the most distinguished panel of sports experts anywhere in the entire civilized world. We're talking about Mac, Jack, and Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guys. Gentlemen, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How you doing?
So we're going to start off today, and we're going to go right into it, and we are going to make our NFL picks for the big games. The idea is our audience on Saturdays and Sundays isn't necessarily the same, and so we want to make sure everybody gets to hear our picks for all the big games. Let's go game by game, and then I'll just ask each person to jump in. The first one we're going to talk about is the Seahawks and the 49ers. Why don't we have Mac, because it's his show, because he's Mac and Jack Sports. We'll have Mac go first. 49ers and Seahawks. Who is going to win?
I think the 49ers pretty easily. Just more talented team than the Seahawks have. Great defense, good first-year quarterback, and a heck of a running game. So I think the San Francisco 49ers win pretty easily.
Nice. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone here was as prepared to pick the Seattle Seahawks to actually win the game, but I think they could be pretty competitive. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But when all is said and done, the 49er defense will clamp down, on Seattle. But Seattle does have some big game talent, with Metcalf, Lockett at the receivers, Walker running back, and Geno Smith is efficient. And the Niners have a rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy, who's more or less a game manager, so you don't expect him to really light it up. But when all is said and done, class tells, and the 49ers should win by about 15 to 17 points.
Nice. Pags?
So I've been trying to think about what would Seattle have to do to win this game? And, obviously the defense, 49ers defense is pretty formidable. They're going to have to score at least 17 points, 20 points, and that's going to be hard to do. And then thinking about, how are you going to stop the 49ers offense from scoring over that amount? They have to disguise the defenses. They have to get a little bit creative. This is a rookie, and they have played the 49ers 2 times already. So they're going to have to get very creative on defense and hold the 49ers to under 17 points. That being said, I don't think it happens.
So it's a consensus. Everyone here is picking the 49ers. I'm picking the 49ers, but I'm not the football expert. If you watched the Dr. Sem show earlier this morning, I made these picks. I just pick on the team that I want to win, and I want the 49ers to win this game. So I'm rooting for the 49ers.
I just want to say one thing. If Seattle does win, you know who they play next? They play at Philadelphia. They advance. They play the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. And if I'm an Eagle fan, I think I'm rooting for Seattle because I think that's an easier matchup, perhaps, to start the playoffs than what they might get otherwise. Perhaps.
All right. So if the Seahawks win, they'll be going to Philadelphia. But ladies and gentlemen, the consensus here is they won't win. The next game is the Chargers against the Jaguars. And Jack, you go first.
Yeah, that's the hardest game in the playoffs for me to pick. It really is. I mean, the Jaguars would be a trendy pick, young upstart team. The Chargers struggled a good part of the year. They had the injuries. But something about the Chargers, they got Justin Herbert. And I don't want to say one of the most underrated coaches and quarterbacks in the NFL because people know how good he really is. But do they really know how good he is? And I think he shines in a game like this. And I know the Charger coach, Brandon Staley, his job might be on the line if they lose. But Jacksonville is so-so. They went on a streak at the end of the year. Their time will come maybe in a couple of years. But right now, I just think the Chargers more of a veteran unit. Great quarterback and Justin Herbert. They get it done.
Pags?
I disagree. I think that the Jaguars do it, actually. I think that they're going to be at home. I think that they are playing pretty well right now. I think that Lawrence didn't necessarily have the best game to beat the Titans, but he's going to clean that up some. And I still don't believe Herbert's 100%. So, and I think that that's affected him quite a bit in the back end of the schedule. So, I think that this is a little bit of a tougher game here, but I think that Jacksonville Jaguars pull it out.
What do you think, Mac?
Well, I think the Chargers are just a better team than the Jags right now. I think their quarterback is better. They got a better running game. That young guy running right now has scored like the most touchdowns in the league this year, and they got a very good defense. A lot of people are taking the Jags, but I'm going to go with the Chargers.
And I'm going to agree with Mac. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Again, I'm not a football expert. I'm picking the Chargers because, well, back in the 80s, I liked Air Coryell and Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow and all those kind of guys. So that's my pick there. This is an easy one, I think, everyone. We'll let Pags go first. The Dolphins against the Bills.
Well, didn't they already play the game? Isn't this game already over? The Bills won like 31-6. No, yeah, I think that's what the score is going to be. I think it's going to be a rout here. I think that, Miami limped into the playoffs, and they're going to limp right back out again.
Jack, what do you think?
It's like when Ralph Cramden was writing out the application, don't make me laugh. I mean, how can the Dolphins win this game? Skylar Thompson, a quarterback. I've seen him a couple of games against the Jets. I don't want to say he's awful. I want to give him respect. He knows how to take the ball from under center, occasionally throw a 15, 20-yard pass. But their backup, Teddy Bridgewater, is going to have to come in and play a great game for the Dolphins, which is always possible. And the Dolphin defense is going to have to shut the Bills down. And come on. I mean, the Bills are going to win this game by about 25 points.
Mac?
Listen. I mean, I don't think the Bills are gonna beat the Dolphins that bad. I mean, they got two of the best receivers in the league, got a good running game and a good defense. I still think Buffalo wins, but it'll be a lot closer than people think.
And I also picked Buffalo. People might think it's because of, all the situations the last few weeks, but there are two teams in football that I like the least, and one of them is the Dolphins. As a Jets fan, I'll never forget the Mud Bowl and A.J. Dewey and all that nonsense, and then Dan Marino with the fake spike, and they beats the Jets. No. I've never liked the Dolphins. Go Buffalo Bills. All right, this is another easy one. Well, we have the Philly sports guy. Maybe he'll be different. Mac, the Giants or the Vikings?
I think this is going to be a real good game. The last one was the Vikings won on that last second field goal, the 61-yarder that just snuck in, but they still won. Of course, I like the Giants. I'm a Giants fan. I think that the Giants defense will be hitting the Vikings quarterback all day. I think they'll be driving him crazy. I don't think the Vikings will run very well against the Giants. On the other hand, I think Saquon Barkley will have a big game against the Vikings. Jones will make a couple throws, and the Giants will sneak by and beat Minnesota.
What do you think, Pags?
I don't trust Kirk Cousins in any type of big game. I think that he comes up really small, and I think because of that alone, that the Giants will prevail here. It was a close game. The Giants are no strangers to getting beat by 61-yard field goals. The Eagles did it a few years ago, and then it happened again this year. But I think that they get a little bit of redemption here, and they beat Minnesota.
Jack, what do you think?
if Clubber Lang was a Viking fan and they told him that some of you guys were picking the Giants, all three of you guys were picking the Giants to beat the Vikings, does he hate that? He says, no, I don't hate those guys. I just pity the fools. That's what he would think. The Giants aren't going to beat the Vikings. You're using the last game as a guide because the Vikings went on a 61-yard field goal. You're thinking, well, the Giants have improved. They've learned a lot. Yeah, they've learned so much. They've been 3-6-1 in the last 10 games. They're in the playoffs because of the great
that has nothing to do with anything. This is the playoffs now. That's the regular season. That season is all done. This is a brand new season. So as far as saying what anybody's done regular season doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is the playoffs. It's a new season, and I know you're going to pick the Vikings because you just don't like the Giants. You're a Jets fan.
Well, I do agree with you. It's a new season, Mac. You're 100% correct. You made a great point. So it doesn't mean anything the past Giant-Viking game in a sense. Vikings are primed for these playoffs. Last week, they're able to rest regulars, still win their game decisively. And, they're just a little level above the Giants, all around this unit. Justin Jefferson, I look for him to have a really, really big game. The Giants are going to have to get to Kirk Cousins. That's their only chance of winning the game. They're going to have to pound them all afternoon. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
Rick brought up the fact that nobody knows who Ralph Kramden is. So as a public service announcement, these are the honeymooners. Ralph Kramden's the guy in the hat in the front. Jackie Gleason from the old television show, The Honeymooners.
It's Kramden with a K, not with a C.
That is. And that's Ed Norton by the door. That's Alice, Ralph's wife, and Trixie in the background. But we're going to move on because if we do too much of the honeymooners, Mac will get upset with us. He'll say that's nothing to do with sports.
Mac,
listen, I'm going Giants because I'm a Giants New York fan. Go Big Blue. So here we go. Here's a good one. Ravens at the Bengals. What do you think, Mac? Ravens against the Bengals.
Well, the Ravens, Lamar Jackson isn't playing. Their second string quarterback may not play. They're not sure. In fact, they're not telling us. I don't think they're sure who's playing a quarterback for them. The Bengals, they went to the Super Bowl last year. Jack says that doesn't matter. I think it does matter. I think it shows teams that, they're building something. And Cincinnati's really got a good team. I think Cincinnati beats the Ravens pretty easily here.
What do you think, Pags?
I heard a rumor yesterday, that Lamar Jackson isn't playing because he's protecting himself from injury. That the contract, he's holding out right now because of the way that they're going about the contract. And if that's true, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I give a little bit of validity to the source. But
Sammy Watkins is the source. I mean, Sammy Watkins said it, Pags, and Sammy Watkins was a receiver. Then the Ravens traded him to the Packers. The Packers had no use for him, and they traded him back to the Ravens. And I don't know with Sammy Watkins whether there's an axe to grind, and maybe he was just speaking out loud and not thinking. But if that's the case, I find that hard to believe, Pax. A professional like Lamar Jackson, do you really think he can bear sitting out because he has his contract in a game this big? It's hard to believe.
I think that has to do with some of the softness of the players nowadays. And this is a learned concept out of college. College players sitting out all the time at major bowl games.
I agree with
that. Pags and Doc is going to maybe remember this. CC Sabathia, when he was with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, he was unbelievable. Yes,
was
sir.
A free agent to be at the end of the season, and they're in the divisional race, to get to the playoffs. He was pitching on short rest, jeopardizing his free agent status because he wanted to win. He felt he had to do it for his teammates.
That's
he
correct.
risked himself on short rest. He didn't think, wow, I got to go on full rest. I'm going to be a free agent. I can't risk this, or
I
that.
think
And
the
I'm sure
Phillies
his
were really
agent
happy
told
about
him,
that.
please do not to pitch.
The Phillies were really happy about that because we got to them twice.
And CC Sabathia ain't Lamar Jackson, Jack. Today's players, I agree with Pags. Today's players is just a different breed. They're more worried about their money than they are about winning a game. And I think Lamar Jackson is that way.
Let me ask the question, because you guys are obviously the football experts. I'm not. My pick for that game is the Bengals. They were in the Super Bowl last year, and I like to see teams who are successful. So I hope that they can make it back to the Super Bowl in a sense. I definitely want them to win this game. We'll see how we go week by week, if there's a team I'd prefer over them, but definitely I'm rooting for the Bengals. But let me ask you this question. The Jets, Woody Johnson came out, I guess, a day or two ago and said, I'm not going to be afraid to go out and get myself a big-time quarterback. So Lamar Jackson is probably the biggest quarterback who's out there. It'll be him or Derek Carr or maybe Aaron Rodgers or maybe Tom Brady. But Lamar Jackson's on the short list, if nothing else. Let's assume there's a small piece of truth to the fact that he's not 100%, but he probably could go, but maybe he doesn't want to go because he's afraid that it might jeopardize his free agency or whatever, or his next contract. Is that the quarterback then do you want to bring into the Jets to help take them to the next level? Is his talent worth it if there's other things that are going on? And maybe we're not talking about Lamar Jackson specifically, but a player like that, because I know there's also a question about Derek Carr. If you're looking for the Jets to get a quarterback, is Lamar Jackson the guy you're looking for?
Go ahead, Jack. It's your team.
The answer is yes. I mean, Lamar Jackson's dynamic, and if that's the case, once he has his contract, he's shown himself to be a competitor throughout the years. I still find it hard to believe he's not injured enough where it could go either way, where he's very concerned he could re-injure himself. I'd like to hear the doctors speak up on this. You just kind of wonder. This is kind of like a rumor. I mean, this might be so unfair to Lamar Jackson, where he might legitimately be hurt, unable to play, but the rumor is he can't. I'll give you an example. Remember Jay Cutler, the quarterback, and when he was with, I think, the Bears, it's a playoff game. He hurt his knee, didn't play during the game, and he was standing on the sideline during the game. And people's perception was, well, if you could stand on the sideline, he could have gone in and played. He could have given it a go. But later was said by physicians, he suffered a legitimately pretty bad injury, even though you're able to, stand up and watch. There's a difference between running and cutting and standing.
Absolutely.
We don't know. Sometimes a person's reputation gets smeared. But let me rephrase it, Doc. If more evidence comes out and we know Lamar Jackson could have played, should have played, but didn't play because he was protecting his contract status, I don't want him on the Jets then, because now it becomes a character issue.
Interesting. And now, I can relate this to the Yankees. Roger Maris, had some difficult years, and he had a hurt wrist, and he was saying my wrist is hurt, and the Yankees, and I guess the whatever, weren't saying it was, and the fans got on him too, like, you stink now, but he couldn't swing a bat the right way. So, sometimes the perception of the fans, the perception of people talking about the games like us and a player aren't always, of course, accurate. So he might really be hurt. The real question was, and I think he answered it, if there's a player who could come to a team that you root for, and that player sits out because they want to protect their contract, that's not a player you'd want on the team. All right.
Did I give you a better question, though, for the Baltimore Ravens? Correct me if I'm wrong, Pax. They can franchise Lamar Jackson next season, put the franchise tag on him. If they feel he truly dogged it during the playoffs, could have played, didn't play because of the contract, do you franchise him for 1 year? Do you let him go? You franchise him partly out of spite, saying, you're not going to get away with this. You're not going to tick us off and walk away as a free agent. We're putting a franchise tag on you. your quarterback for next year. And if you sit out, you're just going to devalue yourself a little more. How do you handle it if you're the Ravens?
Is that for Pags?
I think you absolutely franchise him. I think you have no choice because you can't just let him walk in free agency. Cannot.
Why would you franchise somebody that doesn't want to play for you? I don't get that. You're talking
ultimately, then you get to really see who the problem is.
I think
it's like, this is a game of chicken. Really, this is really a game of chicken.
And you're talking about chicken. You're talking about players that have contracts that are playing for their families and their lives. I don't know why you would waste your time on Lamar Jackson when there's so many options you have out there. Same thing with the Jets. There's so many options.
You don't have a lot of options, Mac. You have a lot of good options.
What are you talking about? You got draft picks that are drafted quarterbacks that are coming out. You've got Tom Brady who's still out there. You've got Derek Carr who's still out there. You still got Jimmy G out there. You got a lot of options, Jack. Why would you waste your time on a guy like Lamar Jackson, who, from what I see, is protecting himself so that he doesn't get injured? Why are you going to do that?
I can't.
Oh, we don't know, do we? We don't know. It's only a rumor.
We don't know for sure. This might be a terrible thing for Lamar Jackson's reputation because he might be legitimately hurt enough where he really believes he shouldn't be out there, that it's too great of a risk. I'm not a believer a quarterback, any player should be so heroic. If he's under a big risk of getting hurt, he has a legitimate injury, these guys got to look out for themselves as well. Not if he's doing it just to protect the contract, to be extra conservative, that I don't like. But if he's legitimately hurt and he's scared, really scared that there's a good chance he could get re-injured if he plays, that he's not quite back to good form, good health, then I don't blame him for sitting out.
Then he shouldn't play football, Jack. I mean, you've got two quarterbacks right now that are in the playoffs that have been injured and might be injured more. You've got Jalen Hurts who hurt his shoulder, and you've got Dak Prescott that hurt his thumb, and they're not trying to protect themselves.
Well, this is a knee, I think, with Lamar Jackson. Isn't it an ankle?
Yeah,
it's a little different.
I don't know.
Tough call. And again, we don't know. It's more of a speculation. Did you make a pick on this game, Pags? I don't think you did. Ravens, Bengals.
Yeah, I think the Bengals. You can't go against Joe Burrows for any reason. So I think it's the Bengals, without a doubt.
And then the last game.
Without Lamar Jackson, I mean, the Bengals win this game. I mean, they win this game handily, I think.
There you go.
And then the last game is the Cowboys against the Buccaneers. I talked about how I don't like the Dolphins. I also never liked the Cowboys. I was a Jets fan. And of course, my other favorite team was the Washington Redskins. My favorite player is John Riggins. We've been over that a lot. But anyway, if you were a Redskin fan back then, you could not root for Danny White and Ed Too Tall Jones and those Cowboy teams. And so I don't care who's on the Cowboys. I'm rooting against them. And my son's a big Tom Brady fan. And so we are going Bucks all the way. I would love to see Tom Brady win another Super Bowl. But again, that's not based on fact or team or anything like that. It's just based on emotion. So the football experts will start with Mac. Who's going to win the game, Cowboys or Bucks?
I mean, this is probably the toughest game of the weekend for me to pick. I got to go with Dallas, even though I hate them. I think that the Cowboys will put some pressure up the middle on Brady. They'll blitz him, and he'll have a problem hitting his targets. He's had a problem with accuracy all year. I think Dallas will run on Tampa Bay a little bit. I think Dallas in a real close game, Doc. I think they win by like 3 points.
Pags?
Until they're able to prove that they can do it. I mean, to be honest, I want Dallas to win. I want the Giants to win, and then I want to face Dallas in the NFC Championship game. Just because I want to be able to smack them around a little bit. And have that, third game to see who really is the better team this year. I don't know that it's going to happen. I think that Tom Brady, there's a reason why Tom Brady's undefeated against Dallas. And I think that gets in their head some. So I think that the Bucs win in a 26-25, with the last second field goal to what Pickles says.
Wow. Interesting. And what do you think, Jack?
Yeah, you kind of warmed my heart what you said a little while ago, Doc. Too Tall Jones. I spoke to him a couple of days ago in depth. I'm interviewing him for a story on his boxing career.
Nice.
We
Yes.
hardly talked football. We talked boxing, his experiences. So when you mentioned Too Tall Jones, I got a big kick out of that. The Buccaneers, they're just flat this year. We've been waiting for them to regain their form. I know Tom Brady led a couple of late drives to win games. This isn't the same Brady. Probably age has a little to do with it. Stuff going on in his personal life probably has something to do with it. And the Buccaneers just not being as good as they were has something to do with it. I feel the Cowboys go into Tampa and they get a win over there. This isn't quite the same Buccaneer team. And then we'll have a Brady watch where he's going to play next year, because I don't believe he retires. Because if he was going to retire, he would have retired before the thing with Giselle and the separation got out of hand. So he's kind of dug in. I think Brady at this point wants to play as long as he can.
All right. So Jack, you're a big Jets fan. Imagine if the Jets offered him a contract. Would you want Brady to be your quarterback next year?
I'll take him. I'll accept him for sure. I mean, what do we have? I mean, we got nothing there now. They ruined Zach Wilson, and maybe Zach Wilson isn't that good. Maybe it's just a combination of all of it. But the point is, even if Zach Wilson had potential, they ruined him the way they handled him, And I don't want Mike White as my franchise quarterback. He's Todd Henneke-like, basically. Yeah, I mean, we take Brady. They're going to have to address it. I would take Tom Brady over Derek Carr in the snap of a finger.
I was just going to ask that. Let's have you rank them: Jimmy G, Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady.
Lamar Jackson.
And Aaron Rodgers. 5 guys. Put them in order.
Now you're talking. Aaron Rodgers would be my first selection because you could keep him on the field more so than you can Lamar Jackson. But, these guys aren't a long-term fix. That's the problem. You get Tom Brady. How long can he quarterback for you? How long would Aaron Rodgers quarterback for you? He could be a reincarnation of Brett Favre as a Jet quarterback. I mean, a glamour name and all this. Lamar Jackson, at the top of his game, is electrifying, great former MVP. Obviously, the others are even better, like a Brady and Rodgers and Jackson. But I would take, if Lamar Jackson is in faking it with this whole thing and there's no evidence that he's deliberately not playing, deliberately not letting teammates down, I'll go with Lamar Jackson and something like this. But if this is a contract ploy by Lamar Jackson, I never want him on my team. I never want a guy like that.
All right, so Pags, you're a Philly fan, of course, but if you had your choice between those 5 quarterbacks, if you didn't have a quarterback, and you were in the Jet situation where you might be a quarterback away, of those 5 guys, who would you pick?
Out of those 5, I mean, the one problem that the Jets have had is consistency at quarterback. And if you take anybody over the age of 35 years old, you're still not going to have consistency because they ain't going to be there for very long. Even if they're there for 2-3 years, you're still back in the same position afterwards. So I would probably go with Lamar Jackson first, I guess. I'm not a fan of David Carr. I'm not a fan of Jimmy G. I don't know that they have enough weapons on the offense side for either one of those guys to do well there. So, I mean, you'd probably have to work it out again in the draft. I don't know that that's there either. You know what I mean? I think that the Jets are really in a quandary here. So, I mean, I guess I would have to go Lamar Jackson, and then maybe I'd go Jimmy G over David Carr because at least Jimmy G has got the playoff experience.
All right. What do you think, Mac?
I definitely I would go with Rodgers first, even though he's older. I mean, you're looking for something to get you over the hump in the next few years. Then Brady. I think Brady could be a good stopgap for him too. He's got a few good years left in him. Then Carr. I think Carr throws a better ball than Jimmy G. Jimmy G would be after him. And just because of the injury, I would take Lamar Jackson last.
Interesting. I would definitely agree with Mac on this one. If I'm a Jets fan and I'm a Jets fan on the fringes, if anything, I would want Aaron Rodgers. My thought is the Jets have been in turmoil since 1969 anyway. So if you can get Aaron Rodgers and he can help get you to the Super Bowl and maybe win the Super Bowl, well, you know what? Then if they have 50 more years of chaos, without it, they're going to have 50 years of chaos anyway. So why not let them maybe have a chance to win and get the best guy. So I would go Rodgers and Brady, the best two of the bunch. I think Jimmy G gets hurt a lot. I don't know enough about Derek Carr, and it seems like Lamar Jackson's hurt a lot. So
there's a next factor, Doc, too. We talk about pressures of playing in New York. Even though Aaron Rodgers, that's iconic, he's very sensitive. And him with the New York media, we don't know how that would play out. And conversely, Tom Brady's oldest son, who he's very close with, 15, plays football, lives in New York. And if Brady could be with his oldest son all the time, he'd love it. They're extremely close. His son would probably maybe live with him part-time. And Tom Brady's resume is so great. How do you criticize? No one could, I mean, even if they get on him the way he's playing, he's so iconic with what he accomplished. He could withstand any criticism, I think, coming his way.
And you know what? This whole thing about, he was a Patriot and he can't be on a New York team. Roger Clemens came to the Yankees and helped them win. Wade Boggs came to the Yankees and helped them win. I mean, that kind of stuff happens sometimes. So it's all good. It's all fun. Let's get to the question. Rick has just his little point in here. Rodgers is all about himself. He's a bad choice for a team on the fringe. Interesting perspectives, everyone.
He's got a point. He's got a point. And before you go on, Doc, Jim Jeffcoat sent him text us in his picks for the people for Jack and Pags that are still playing in the pool here. He picked the 49ers and the Jags. So there you go. Oh,
nice. Okay. That's for today.
Yes.
Those are and then tomorrow he'll be on. So he'll be able to make his picks for tomorrow. So for Jim Jeffcoat saying the 49ers are going to win today and the Jags, what'd you say?
The Jags.
All right. So the 49ers and the Jaguars are going to win today. All right. So let's get to the questions. We have a distinguished panel called Jack who makes the questions each week for us.
I'll be right back, guys.
Yes. And the question today is, to begin, which NFL team is under the most pressure to win today or this weekend? Which team has the most pressure to win? I'll start. I think it's the Cowboys. I think they have a very good team and they've had a very good season. And the Cowboys haven't been there in a long time. They have not been successful for a long time. And I think it's, time for a franchise like the Cowboys to start winning postseason games. I think there's a lot of pressure on them to start winning. So I think the Cowboys are the pick there. What do you think, Mac?
I'd have to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, Doc. And that's just because they've been the team all year.
They have a bye, Mac, but they have a bye this weekend. You could say throughout the playoffs. Is it this weekend? I think is the question.
Well, I thought it was I thought he said who had the most to lose during the.
I think I said that, and for Jack's point is on the question. It does say this weekend.
Okay.
Sometimes I ad-lib as I start seeing them.
You could say playoffs week.
Yeah. So I think Philadelphia, because they're number one seed, they made all those pickups during the off season, getting building their team through free agents and through drafts. They made some really good draft picks this year too. So they were highly touted, number one seed, best team in the NFC. And if they get knocked out, their first playoff game, I mean, that would be terrible for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that's why the most pressure is on the Eagles right now.
What do you think, Jack?
I think we have to look at fan bases, how they're going to react. That's a key thing, because there's several teams that are under equal pressure. Like, let's say the Kansas City Chiefs get bumped out of the playoffs. The year's a big disappointment, okay, for them. The Bengals, year's a big disappointment, but at least the Chiefs, the Bengals, they've been to recent Super Bowls. The Buffalo Bills haven't. It would be a big disappointment internally, but the Bill fans are so great. They would actually be understanding, and their attitude is, we're going to come back and win it next year. I think I agree with Doc. I think it's the Dallas Cowboys, because I think if they lose, if they lose to the Buccaneers, there's going to be such an uproar in Dallas. Fire the coach, do this, do that. What's Jerry Jones doing? Get rid of Dak Prescott, make this move, that move. That they might, all heck is going to break loose in Dallas if they lose to the Buccaneers, because the Cowboys are billed as America's team, right? They're billed as the most popular brand supposedly in the NFL, and they haven't been to a Super Bowl in some 30 years approximately. They're under severe pressure, the Cowboys, to at least win this weekend and keep it going. Because if they lose to a team that they're capable of beating in the Buccaneers, there's going to be a lot of noise in Dallas, more than there would be in other NFL cities.
Jack, let's say the Cowboys lose and your scenario plays out. There's all this uproar in Dallas, and they're looking to trade Dak Prescott. Does that change your opinion of who you want to be the Jets quarterback? Would you want him?
I would want him, absolutely. He would be a big upgrade. He's at the very least, he's a good, solid quarterback. He has a track record. He's good. Dak Prescott is good. They make him out to be a bit of a scapegoat at times. I mean, I certainly want him more than I would a Derek Carr. I want him more than I would a Jimmy G. I think he's a little, ahead of those guys. So, yeah, the answer is yes, but Dallas isn't going to trade him, because now they got to look for a quarterback. Most teams have to live with their quarterbacks, and they get retreads if you look elsewhere. What are you going to pick up? A Carson Wentz, a Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, guys who've lost their jobs and then they're trying to latch on to another job. Listen, if I'm the Jets, can you imagine Geno Smith might be a free agent? The Jets go after him. Then the answer could be, why didn't you just keep him all these years? I mean, think of that. I hate the term, and do you guys believe this, even though we know it's true to an extent, change your scenery? I mean, if a guy is good, he's going to be good the whole way through. I proposed a question to you guys years ago. If the New York Mets never traded Nolan Ryan, would he have enjoyed the same career? Chances are he would have. He had a live arm. He would have done it on a little bit of a different stage. So, but the answer is yes. Dak Prescott, I would go after him absolutely if I could get him.
I think scenery matters. I think people, they react differently to a bigger market than a smaller market. There's some players that can't play in a big market. The pressure's too much for them, and it's a lot easier for them to play whatever sport it is in a more calm area, and it just feels better for them and their families too. You got to take in consideration: does their family want to be in New York, or would they rather be out in Oklahoma? So I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. As far as Dak Prescott goes, Jack, I think you're getting rid of, you're bringing on a quarterback that can't do it under pressure. She's proved it. He threw a lot of interceptions, led the league this year in interceptions. I don't know if that's a good fit for the Jets. I don't know if they would want a Dak Prescott.
Well, he lost Amari Cooper, one of his main receivers, in the offseason, and C.D. Lamb had a case of the drops at times. It's
Sure.
But you're talking about the dysfunctional Jets at quarterback, so he would be a significant upgrade. That's obviously I would want him, and he is a good quarterback, Dak Prescott. We could have a debate who's better, him or Daniel Jones. I would put him ahead of Daniel Jones, but he has not as good a year as Daniel Jones.
Right.
And I'll agree, Daniel Jones has had a better year.
Right. Yeah, and I'm going to disagree with the idea that change of scenery. I think change of scenery matters a lot. I think people go to different places. They've in every way way of life, right? They go to different opportunities. They go into different businesses. They go to different business models. They go to different companies, and then they sometimes thrive with the people that are around them, different people around them. Hey, you even see that with certain TV shows, and people thrive on one show and then they go to another show and it doesn't work because there's a different chemistry there. So I think the change of scenery matters for lots of people, lots of times, and in lots of different ways.
Doc, think of this. I think the myth of saying, oh, they can't take the pressure, New York players, that's why they didn't play well. Think of all the Yankee players who maybe didn't play elsewhere. They come to the Yankees, all of a sudden they're good. Is it because they couldn't take the pressure playing in a small market? I'm just being sarcastic now. But that happens. I think it's overrated where you're playing the pressure being in a certain area. I mean, it's true to an extent. Don't get me wrong. But I think every time an athlete doesn't perform in New York, they say it's the pressure playing in New York. No, he just didn't play well. He wouldn't have played well in Baltimore, Kansas City.
I don't know if I agree with that, Jack. I think it matters. I think it matters a lot, especially to the families, what schools you're going to. There's so many different things that come into where you go, taxes. I mean, there's so much to consider when you're going from one team to another. So I really believe that where you're playing matters a lot.
And where you're playing matters a whole lot. And the next question actually is, which stadium, which arena is the most intimidating for the fan of the visiting team? I think we'll start with Pags on this one. He has a lot of experience being in the stands. Which is the most intimidating place to play?
Are we talking? What sport are we talking?
We'll go to Jack. He's the expert on the questions.
Well, no, it would be really any sport because I think fan bases for the most part are the same. I understand in Philadelphia, you could say the Eagle fans are more intense than the 76er fans. But if the 76ers ever got to the point where they were on the cusp of being NBA champions of that caliber, like back in the day with Dr. J, and all that, and Moses Malone, I think the fan base ratchets it up a couple of levels in Philadelphia, and the Sixer fans become like the Eagle fans. Okay, and
so, but I mean, the way that you word that question though has me like, for instance, the Vet was a much harder place to play than the Link. When I think of the Montreal Forum, the Boston Garden, the old Boston Garden. Those were like arenas and stadiums that were tough to play in. Like they were really hard. Like going into Oakland was really difficult to do. You go into Las Vegas, it's nothing anymore. You know what I mean? It's that they really lost the home field advantage there. So when I think of really tough, but the Superdome or in New Orleans, the Mercedes-Benz Arena Dome or whatever you want to call it. I think that's a tough place to play because the Saints have a passionate fan base as well. So those are when you say play tough places to play, those are the things that immediately come to my mind.
Yeah. So very good, Frank. That's how Frank does it.
The question, I think, Doc, did you say it right or did I not hear? Because the question was supposed to be, which arena stadium is the most intimidating for a fan of the visiting team? For a fan. So that's the question. You as a Yankee fan, what would be the most intimidating place for you to watch a baseball game? Me as a football fan. Pax makes a good point. You could link it to different sports. Because a buddy of mine inspired the question. The one that lives in Tampa, said you could go to Tampa Bay, you could dress in a jet outfit if they're playing the Buccaneers, and you could feel safe in the stadium. But if you go to Philadelphia, he told me those fans are the worst fans in sports. You wear a Jet outfit. You root for your team, any team.
You know, the
Eagles
problem
fans
is that
are
he's
on the
probably been
risk.
to one game maybe, and it was probably the NFC Championship game. And yeah, that it was probably at the Vet, and it was a rough time. And he's been so hurt by that he's been a big softie and hasn't been able to go back. I tell you, anybody can wear a Jets jersey into our stadium, and nobody would care because nobody cares about the Jets.
Giant fans, if I know a Giant fan, he told me too, his experiences were less than pleasant in Philadelphia. You have to be very quiet rooting for your team.
Yeah,
Very, very quiet.
You know, it's again, it sounds like that they are have a weak constitution. You know, and say, listen, again, we don't like soft. So you better wear your thick skin anyways. If you're coming to support a different team, and
Remember what
you
Keith
gotta wear
Fernandez
thick
said.
listen,
Keith
I
Fernandez
would,
didn't
because you're going to hear a
broadcast
little
the
bit.
game in
I
Philadelphia.
would not be scared to go into Philadelphia, wear my Giants stuff, and root for my team. I have no fear of the Philadelphia Eagle fans at all. I think they love their team. They're very passionate, and I respect that too. So I would have no problem doing it as a fan. I'm confused by the question now because I don't know what we're actually debating here. Is it the stadium or is it being a fan in the stadium? I don't know. But listen, there's so many different. Pags brought up some teams. I mean, you could say the Yankees with their history. I mean, I know it's a newer stadium now, but it's still a hard place to play if you're Fenway Park. I know that's a hard place to play with all the Red Sox fans and that big green monster. It's historical. Giant Stadium. I mean, all the history of the Giants, and it's a very hard question to answer. My answer was Dallas because of the history there. The star there, and playing there as a Giants fan. I hated playing Dallas. And watching them get their butts whooped all the time. So
Matt, you
yeah,
make a
but
good
it's not
point.
hard to walk in there as a fan.
no.
Where do you feel
really
safest? Where do you feel least safe? That's I think, to sum it up, Matt makes a good point to specify the question. If I'm a Cowboy fan and they're playing the Eagles, let's say hypothetically in the NFC Championship game, and the Cowboys win to go to the Super Bowl, and I'm walking out, even if I'm quiet the whole time, and I have on a Dallas Cowboy jacket, do I feel completely safe walking out the stadium? Do I feel some moron might take a cheap shot at me and hit me when I'm not looking? That's where I'm kind of going at, with that question. And listen, Yankee fans have gotten heavily criticized by wives of opposing players and so on. So I don't need to link it to Philadelphia. Let's link it to Yankee Stadium. This nonsense has gone on there. We had the rivalry with the Giants and the Dodgers, fans getting injured and hit,
Hey, I have a TikTok video that got close to like 300,000 views from out in the bleachers in Yankee Stadium, and that one area that I guess it's just there's an area back there where there's a girl who was standing right next to me who was letting me know exactly how she felt about the Phillies. And that was when the Phillies went up there. And, of course, they didn't let me in with my face paint, by the way. I had to take my face paint off. And she was using very explicit words to say to me how she felt about the Phillies. And, I've got the whole thing on video. It was a great video, got 300,000 views and stuff like that. Of course, the Yankees won the game in extra innings. So I didn't have the ability to kind of walk out. And it was fun for me because, I got thick skin. I don't care. You know what I mean? But the Yankee fans were very aggressive is a good word to use. I know that Philadelphia fans can be very aggressive. I think Boston fans can be very aggressive. When you're up in wearing a jersey into Fenway Park may be a little challenging.
Huh?
I got to imagine that they're not going to take too kindly to that. So those are things that I think of. For instance, Mets fans consistently come down to watch baseball in Philadelphia. And I love bantering with them back and forth. We have a great time. There's more fights from Mets fans to Mets fans than there are Mets fans and Philly fans.
I believe that.
So, I mean, like I said, it's such a disparity from when you think Giants, Eagles in comparison to Mets, Phillies. But I think each sport definitely has challenges. I mean, obviously, this isn't like Man City versus Manchester United. You know what I mean? Where they have to have lined guards, with Uzis separating the two fan bases. You know what I mean? Because they're afraid people are going to get stabbed and killed and things like that. That there are sports like that. But, when I think of me personally, I love passionate fan bases. So going to New Orleans was great. That was an amazing experience. When I watched Dak Prescott, when the Eagles took on the Cowboys a couple of years ago in the first game of not the first game of the season, but their home opener, which happened to be on Monday night in week 3, that was an aggressive Dallas Cowboy fan base because they hadn't seen their quarterback for a year. They put Jimmy Johnson in the Hall of Fame, I guess, is what they did there. They didn't put him in the Ring of Honor. So it was a big deal. And I had never felt that electricity in Dallas that way. And it was fun to feel it. I love when I'm a part of stuff like that. After Houston hit that home run in the World Series in Game 6, you felt that electricity.
Jack, I know you covering boxing. You've been in a couple spots where you were scared because how the fans were reacting to boxers, who won and who lost. So I think it's everywhere, guys.
Yeah,
really
depending, right? Like if you're playing a regular season game, it's going to be different than a playoff game or a Super Bowl game. Those Super Bowls at a neutral site, but a World Series game or an NBA championship. I think it all depends on the personality of the team at the time too, right? Like if
you ask a Vikings fan, he's going to definitely say Philadelphia. But they don't. They've seemed to forget about the fact that they went ahead and they put a Vikings jersey on Rocky and then tried to do the skull chant on the Rocky steps and thought that it's just okay. They thought that was just fine to do, that they weren't going to get any pushback from that. Are you kidding me? That doesn't work that way. You get some pushback. If you want to come into my house and move around the furniture, you're going to expect me to make it a little bit more difficult for you. And that's what happened. And now they're, Philadelphia's the worst place in the world. They got the worst fans, blah, 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 blah. It was, because they went ahead and tried to do that. You don't do that.
I will say this. I was at Pags' house and I couldn't move that piano. I tried.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, you could do things in a subtle way, get back at other fans the way Doc does. Like when someone gets something from the vendor and they want to pass it down the aisle and Doc is in the middle, he makes believe he doesn't see the bag of peanuts because he sees the guy has on another, jersey. There are ways to work around it. That's how.
And that's never happened. I love passing the hot dogs and the sodas and all that. They don't do that anymore. I miss all that. That helped bring people together. It's like, hey, yeah, we're all sharing a hot dog. Red Sox fan, it's all good, man. But anyway, speaking of fighting,
but how about you couldn't be an Oakland Raiders fan go and feel really safe going into Arrowhead. I mean, you've had people get killed there. And that doesn't get reported as much as everything that, anytime that somebody, does anything in Philadelphia, it gets reported, so but that stuff under the radar. So there's definitely a lot of those types of situations, I feel, that opposing teams, like if you are, I don't think LA has got a big thing because I don't think anybody cares in LA. But if you are a Vikings fan and you're going into Green Bay, I bet you have a little bit more thick skin on. I think that's part of it. know, when you think of the big rivalries, you know, you go back to hockey, you think of the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. I mean, it's lost a lot of its luster because the teams aren't that good and they're fighting to get back to that elite status. But those games mattered. You know what I mean? That same thing with Montreal. You know, when you have those types of things, and I think the same thing. Like I said, Yankees, Red Sox. I think that means something. You know, and those stadiums are going to have a lot more energy. I remember going to a Red Sox Yankees game in the old Yankee Stadium to watch Roger Clemens try to win his 300th game the second time. He lost that game too. And I went with a Red Sox fan who was my girlfriend at the time was a Red Sox fan. And we went in the Yankee Stadium. You know, and of course, I mean, I had the only thing that I could wear. I wore my Reggie Jackson jersey because I'm Mr. October too.
You know, it's interesting too. I think what you're also making the point about going to Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium obviously opened up the new one in 2009. It's a different experience to go to a game in Yankee Stadium today than to go into the older Yankee Stadium. The older Yankee Stadium, you were much closer to the field. You were much closer to the other fans. There was definitely a different, tougher feeling at the older stadium than the new stadium. The new stadium feels a lot cleaner or a lot more corporate or whatever you want to say. It definitely doesn't have that edge, that New York edge like it used to.
Agreed.
But speaking of fighting, Jack asks us to look back at the career of one of the great fighters of all time, Sugar Ray Robinson. And the question is Sugar Ray Robinson overrated? And let's start with our great boxing expert, the member of the Boxing Hall of Fame, Jack Hirsch. Is Sugar Ray Robinson overrated?
I got to ask you guys, is it possible to be the greatest of all time in your sport, yet still be overrated? That's a good question, because if that's the case, the answer is yes, absolutely. And actually, my buddy on Gloved Fist, Frank Laterzo, inspired this question. Mac heard the show. Laterzo was saying, hypothetically, if they were both the same weight, Sugar Ray Robinson and Muhammad Ali, he's saying it would have been a mismatch. Robinson beats him easy. And then Laterzo follows up on social media about the show, saying by any metric, Robinson is superior to Ali. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. You know what? That's the same thing as saying, let's say Babe Ruth didn't exist. You know who we might be saying the greatest player of all time was? Perhaps Joe DiMaggio. If Babe Ruth never existed, Joe DiMaggio played in his prime around the time Sugar Ray Robinson was in his prime as a boxer as well, when he was at a welterweight at his very best. And can you imagine saying, how can you even put Willie Mays in Joe DiMaggio's league? He's not even in his class. That would be ludicrous. You could feel Joe DiMaggio was better than Willie Mays. That's fine if you have that opinion. But to say Ali isn't even in Robinson's league, but that's the mentality. They're saying, well, if Sugar Ray Robinson fought Sugar Ray Leonard at welterweight, I'm hearing all this, oh, it would be a mismatch. Robinson beats him easy. It's man against boy. I hear this mentality in boxing all the time. I'm sick of it. It would be a nip and tuck fight if Robinson fought Leonard. It's fine based on Robinson's career to call him the greatest fighter pound for pound of all time. I'm not arguing that point, but we're overrating him to the point where all these other legendary fighters who came after were saying they're not even in Sugar Ray Robinson's league. I'm sick of it. Absolutely sick of that talk. Like, how dare we compare anyone to Robinson? So yes, you want to know the answer? The greatest fighter of all time, pound for pound, might be overrated.
It's an interesting perspective. Could you be overrated and still be the best of all time? And I guess to a certain extent, because, you know, we all have our flaws and we all have our areas where we're really skilled. You know, like Aaron Judge has not necessarily done well in the playoffs the last couple of years. He had a great season in 2022. He's had very good and excellent seasons before that. Is he the greatest player right now? I mean, he's a great player right now. Has he helped the Yankees win a World Series? No. So could he be the best player in baseball right now and still be overrated? Yeah. And I think people said that about Jeter too. Like, was Jeter overrated? So I think it's a fair question. To say though that Sugar Ray Robinson wouldn't beat Muhammad Ali or wouldn't beat Sugar Ray Leonard or wouldn't beat anybody else, that assuming they were the same weight, I think is also a stretch, because Sugar Ray Robinson, if he is the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time, you'd have to assume that if he went to another weight class and fought as a heavyweight, that he'd win.
Frank Laterzo said Robinson, to quote, I'm not using his exact words, would beat the bleep out of Ali if they fought. No one dominates Muhammad Ali. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Robinson is going to dominate Ali? No one dominates Ali. Maybe Robinson wins a close decision, okay? Perhaps, and maybe he loses. But we're talking Muhammad Ali here.
Well, let's just bring it a couple quick points here.
Let
We're
me ask
talking
this
about
question.
in their prime. We're talking about in their prime, right? Joe Louis beat Muhammad Ali.
Joe Frazier.
Joe Frazier. That's what I meant. Yeah, Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali.
You know, I think the biggest problem, guys, with this, and listen, Sugar Ray Robinson, one of the greatest fighters of all time, no question, hands down. But you got different eras. You've got different fighters in different weight classes. I mean, you brought up Joe Louis. I mean, you could bring up Rocky Marciano. You could bring up in football. You could bring up Jimmy Brown. Was he the greatest running back of all time? Of his era, he was. Today, I mean, some people will say that. Johnny Unitas, was he the greatest quarterback of his era? Probably. But I mean, that's the problem when you have discussions like this or debates like this, is because you're taking different eras. You're taking different, a lightweight you can't compare to a heavyweight. I mean, a lightweight would definitely get destroyed. But I mean, so how do you do that? I guess if you want to say that he's the greatest pound per pound fighter of all time, you could say that, and you might not be wrong. But I mean, I don't know how you can justify that with all the different fighters and all the different weight levels and different eras.
It's not saying he's the best, Max, Sugar Ray Robinson. That's not the argument. The argument's saying that no one is even in this league. How dare you mention anyone in the same breath as him? That mentality.
Right.
That's
Right.
What I basically.
Well, I think that's sort of short-sighted, right? Because these are all professional athletes. My point was Joe Frazier beat Ali. Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson. People lose, right? Like that's part of why we watch the games. If we knew that the guy was going to win every fight, we probably wouldn't watch, because there'd be no point to watch.
Right.
But there's always the possibility of the underdog winning. That's why we watch these things. So of course, Sugar Ray lost a lot of fights, didn't he?
Well, late on in his career, I mean, he was phenomenal. He won 40 in a row, lost to Jake LaMotta, who he won 5 out of 6 against, and then won 87 fights in a row without losing after that.
Right.
So when you hear Floyd Mayweather, his 50 fights in his career, and you hear people say, well, is Mayweather the greatest of all time? A number of old-timers like Sugar Ray Robinson, their records during their prime were like far more impressive than what Mayweather did with his 50.
Jack, could you say Willie Pep was the greatest pound for pound boxer of all time?
He's rates up there. Willie Pep had a phenomenal run where I forgot his exact record, but it was superior to what Mayweather, accomplished. There's going to be a movie coming out soon. I think it's called The Featherweight on Willie Pep.
Right.
Okay.
So let me ask this
that's
question,
something
because
to
obviously this was a time of boxing where I feel like started its decline a little bit. Larry Holmes went 48-0 before he lost his 49th fight. And obviously he was up in age at that point, and he maybe shouldn't have even had that fight. He really wasn't in the same class when I watched that loss happen. But where does he rank? Like during his prime, would he have given a good fight to Muhammad Ali prime at prime, or would Ali outclassed him?
No, Ali, that's a great question. We'll never know the answer, but I think he would have given Ali all Ali could have handled and conceivably have beaten Ali. Okay, conceivably. It would have been a close nip and tuck type fight. But you think Ali, with the little extra speed, the little extra versatility, Ali, a young version of Ali, would have outpointed Holmes in a highly competitive fight. That's like a consensus. But listen, if they did best, you know what the problem is in boxing? It's a lot of one and done. Why can't they do it best 4 out of 7, fight like 2 months apart, like they do in the playoffs? But we don't have that. They fight one time in their career, and we completely judge things based like on one fight. Like, look, if Ali knocks out Foreman, that's one fight, and we remember that one fight. What happens if they fought best 4 out of 7? Chances are Ali wins 4 in a row. I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't know.
But there's not enough of a body of work in boxing.
No, that's why the Ali Frazier fights are so fun, because there were 3 of them, right? So there's some, there's a little bit of Arturo Gotti, Mickey Ward. They fought a whole bunch of times. We were talking about that a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Those become very compelling because it's time after time after time.
Jack,
and let me ask this question about Muhammad Ali. When I was talking to people who probably don't have as much boxing knowledge as you, and as Muhammad Ali got older, that he was winning fights because when he would tie you up, he would have his hand on the back of your head, and he would force your head down where you're always trying to pick your head back up again. And after 12 rounds of that, you're getting exhausted because he's always doing that same type of move. Is that one of the tactics that he used on a consistent basis to be able to win fights, by really tiring his opponent out by doing it? Like, because that's not boxing, obviously. That seems more like wrestling. But obviously nobody was saying anything about it, or if they were saying about it, it wasn't going anywhere because he was still allowed to do it.
Well, the second coming of if you'd mentioned Muhammad Ali, and I told you Ali was one of the biggest underachievers in boxing history, you'd say, well, how could that be? One of the greatest fighters of all time. He didn't underachieve, but he did. The second coming of Ali after the forced layoff, he didn't get into top shape for a lot of fights. He got by on talent. He got by on mental strength. He would use the rope-a-dope, figuring less inferior opponents would tire themselves out. He was doing enough to win. You mentioned the pulling down on an opponent's head. The second fight against Joe Frazier, he did that all fight. He would dance around the ring, jab Frazier getting close, he'd hold him. Pop Frazier, a couple of punches, hold him. Constant holding. But it was a smart strategy, and it got him the decision.
Great stuff. All right, my dear friends, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to commercials. We're going to take a couple of breaks, give everybody a chance to stretch, get to see Mean Joe Green, as we always do when we start running the commercials. Pags, do you have a commercial today you want to get in there?
No, not today.
All right, so let's
I will say that we did raise $4,800
last week
in our March. So it was a very big success. Yeah, thank you for everybody who came out and hooked us up and donated.
That's awesome.
Great job.
All right, my friends, we'll be back in just a few moments.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, no thanks, not my thing.
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
Are For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any...
Hey, here's a commercial. This is a commercial from me, my great book that I wrote with Roy White, From Compton to the Bronx, with a foreword by Marty Appel. That book is coming out in April, and you can now pre-order From Compton to the Bronx, which is an outstanding book about the life and career of Roy White, one of the great Yankees of all time. You can pre-order that at any major bookseller, any bookseller, really. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. Go take a look. Get that book now so that when April 11th rolls around, that book will be in your mailbox, and you'll be able to be one of the first people to read From Compton to the Bronx. I promise you'll enjoy it a great deal. All right, a couple more commercials.
My baloney has a first name, it's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name, it's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day, and if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. Down it, crap! I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer and less.
Good seats, hey, buddy. He missed the tag. He missed the tag.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green?
Yeah.
You need any help?
Mm-mm.
I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
A Coke and a smile makes me feel good, makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
Nothing better than that commercial. Thanks, Mean Joe. Love it. Hey, we are back at the Mac, or the Jack, and Pags, and almost the Mac show here on Saturday mornings. It's our debate show. We're going to talk about basketball now. We're going to jump in. And here's the question. And as you guys debate this one, I'll take a quick second out. But the question is this: if Kyrie Irving goes the rest of the season without incident and continues to perform at his normal level, should the Nets sign him to a long-term deal? Irving will be a free agent at the end of the season. So if he continues to behave, if there's no incidents, should the Nets bring him back? Who wants to go first on that one?
I guess I'll go first.
All right, Mac, it's all you.
Thank you.
As he went and took a bite.
I mean, my wife made me some delicious homemade donuts.
Wow.
That looks like a bagel, Mac. That doesn't look like a donut.
Well, you know, she's trying. It's a donut.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
It looks like a good donut. So do you want to enjoy the donut and let Jack answer the question, or do you want
Jack will start off, okay, Mac, because Mac, let him finish eating. I mean,
let him have his bagel.
Yeah, I mean, Mac can talk. He's kind of like with describing Lamar Jackson. Can Lamar Jackson play? Can Mac talk? Does he want to? That's the question.
Mac might be holding out.
Mac might be holding out, like he's waiting for the butter or whatever.
I don't know. This could be big time.
This is unbelievable, this question, all of a sudden. I got cold feet at the last moment because the answer is supposed to be no. I wouldn't chance Kyrie Irving. Why would I want to sign Kyrie Irving long time? Because there's going to be Kyrie Irving drama later on. Something's going to come up with Kyrie. I can't take the guy anymore. Things are quiet now, but it's like the lull before the storm. So why would I want to sign this guy? But all of a sudden I'm thinking, why am I getting cold feet? Not so much because of his performance on the court, which does help a team. He's a heck of a player. He does make a positive impact. But the point is his value to the Nets as a franchise. If Durant and Irving aren't there, no one could care less about the Nets as a franchise. You might say, well, they're New York-based, the Brooklyn Nets, just where they're located. It's a very valuable franchise. But no, it's a New York, Nicktown, New York. Brooklyn is irrelevant unless they have Durant and Irving for now. Durant and Irving make the Nets one of the most popular draws in the NBA. Okay? So Irving is a lightning rod. He's a problem. He's this, he's that. There's going to be more drama in the future. But now that I think of it, I'd probably sign him to the long-term deal because of the value he gives to the franchise. Even when he's not playing and you're suspending him, your team is in the news. The franchise's value is probably up. You know, if I'm an owner, and then if I want to sell later on, it's like living in a lousy house, but the value of the house is going up dollar-wise. That's how I look at it. So maybe you put up with all the nonsense in the house because the price keeps rising. So if you want to sell it at any point, it's got more value. This question tears me up because I was going to say, no, I don't sign him to a long-term deal. But I actually think, you know, what choice do I have?
Well, I don't know. I think Kyrie Irving is a time bomb ready to go off, as Rick Sherlock said. Listen, there's no Durant right now, so they're depending highly on Kyrie Irving. He's a great basketball player. There's no doubt about it. But he doesn't like basketball, I don't think. I think he likes himself more than basketball itself. I think that Kyrie Irving, I don't think he'll get a big contract, Jack. I really don't. Nobody else wanted him. He was on the market. Nobody else signed him. He'll get some kind of contract. He'll play maybe a couple more years for the Nets. But you know, again, how can you depend on somebody that's is gonna be suspended again? You can't. So sign him to a short-term contract. See if they can make a run at the championship, and that would be my feelings on Kyrie Irving, Pax.
You know, the fact that we're even asking this question is kind of funny to me in general. You know what I mean? I don't. You know, he's been quiet. You know, he's been the good soldier. Is he a good soldier, or has he just not had the opportunity to say anything in the opposite direction? And the truth of the matter is that why is anybody listening in the first place? He gets paid to play basketball, and that's it. You know what I mean? So really, whatever he does with his private life should remain that, but we are all very social media, savvy. We want to be able to know everything about everybody. And, it's, I don't subscribe to that magazine. He's a good player. And when focused, he's a great player. Yeah. It becomes a matter of, is that team a good enough team to win? And I don't even think it's a good enough team with Durant. So I think that they are still a few players short from being able to get over the hump. That even though it says, hey, you need a big three to make it, you need the supporting cast around the big three too. But that's why you see Milwaukee's and Boston's and Golden State and those types of teams do really well. Because when it comes to the playoffs, they have the supporting cast to help out the big three. And that's what's missing. I feel like that's a little bit of what's been missing with Sixers. I feel it's definitely what's missing with the Nets.
Jack does make a good point about being more popular, that they'll sell more tickets if that's what you want to do. I don't think they've won a championship with those two, have they? Playing together since they've been together. So I don't know, Jack. I agree with the point that it does make them more popular and that people will go to see.
The value of the franchise is up, and the net brand is greater with Kyrie Irving than if they move on.
I'll agree with that. And Durant is not really a great leader anyway. I mean, is Durant going to be with the Nets a couple years from now?
He has 3 more years, I think, after this year on his deal. There's an X factor too, and this is going to annoy Pags. The Ben Simmons factor. When you have Durant and Irving, it takes a ton of pressure off Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has hardly scored this year, but at least he's stabilized. He's been on the court. He's played defense. He's contributed, not like a star, but he's contributed. If he was getting paid less money, Ben Simmons had less of a name. You'd say, oh, there's a really good player that's been helping the Nets. So Ben Simmons hasn't had to score because he has 2 dynamic scorers in Durant and Irving. So whatever Ben Simmons could contribute offensively, he does. And that keeps him on the court. That keeps him in a better frame of mind. If Ben Simmons all of a sudden had to score, panic might set in. He might not be playing as much. There might be boos, and he might suffer relapse.
I'm going to give you I want you to agree with this comparison. That Ben Simmons is a little bit of a lesser Andre Iguodala.
I don't know. I mean, but what's your point on that? I don't get it.
Well, Andre Iguodala was also a big name in Philadelphia, and he was tried to be the number one guy. He really wasn't a number one guy. He was a good defensive specialist and would score about 24 points a game, I think, on average here. Of course, he winds up floating around. They get rid of him, and he winds up floating around, but he winds up getting to go into Golden State and helping them win, 3 rings? You know what I mean? So, but he being a defensive specialist where he wasn't required to be the number one guy. And I mean, I think he was a finals MVP one year.
He was, 1 year. Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, and I look at Ben Simmons, very similar trajectory in the grand scheme of things, where it didn't work out in Philly. Obviously, he needed to leave here because he wasn't going to play here again. And he's more defensive. And, he's kind of got the same type of situation going, except he doesn't have the wherewithal and the drive to win championships like Andre Iguodala did.
Expectations were high in Philadelphia for Ben Simmons. He was considered 1A next to Embiid. And for the Nets, he's not even looked at as a number 3. He's just looked at as a starter, contributor. And because of Irving and Durant, no one's getting on Ben Simmons, oh, you got to score, because they have 2 high-profile scorers. And I think Ben Simmons would have been I think it was expectations in Philadelphia. That's all it came down to. And Ben Simmons teased the 76er fans with his potential in the beginning. He looked like he could become a scorer. He looked like he could become one of the big names in the NBA, a genuine star. And no one expects that from him anymore. They just want him to be a very good player for the Nets. No one's expecting him to be a star. So I think the expectations are much lower, even though he's playing in the big market in Brooklyn.
I mean, Jack, as you said, it's a Knicks town to begin with. The New York Knicks rule New York. Brooklyn is the little brother. I think the Knicks right now are better than the Nets. I think they're a better team than the Nets are right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable right now. But and the Kyrie Irving thing could go either way, because I kind of froze at the last moment on the question, because if you actually have to cut ties with Kyrie Irving, what's Brooklyn as far as marketability? You still got Durant. That's the big name, but they won't be. But you have to 1-2 punch Durant and Irving and make some box office. If you're living in another city, okay, let's say you live in Kansas City that doesn't have an NBA city, and you want an NBA team to come into town for a one-and-done deal, and you look down the list of NBA teams, who do you want to see play? Of course, you look towards LeBron. He's box office, but the Nets would be up there. They might be even the second team you go to. Maybe not, but certainly in the top 5.
Yeah, top 5. I'd put Golden State up there too. I would want to see them, So.
Yeah.
As we talk about basketball, there's another question, and I think Jamie Pags is going to be a really good person to give a perspective on this one. We talk about the big 4 sports: baseball, football, basketball, and hockey. But is it time really just to say the big 3? Is it really just baseball, football, and basketball? Does hockey deserve to be mentioned in the same category as the other big 3 sports? Is it really the big 3 and then others? What do you think?
Good question. Hockey as a whole has diminished in general in the country. It's I would say, I heard something, and there's proof proving that soccer, MLS soccer, in 10 years will have more worth in the United States NHL will. And that franchises of soccer teams will be worth more than hockey teams.
I agree with
and and that's a real thing. So when you say the big 4, I mean, hockey gets thrown into the mix because it's been around so long now. I mean, the NHL it's still the hardest trophy to get in sports, the Stanley Cup. And I feel that the problem right now with hockey is its leadership in terms of Bettman and the people underneath of him. They don't know how to market the sport, and it's becoming an issue. You have fans of hockey teams are old timer fans. They're not bringing in new fans because it's too expensive of a sport to play. They're not doing enough to be able to do to bring it out there. You used to have street hockey rinks all over the place. You don't have them anymore. They were all taken down. So it's really caused the problem on how the popularity of that sport continues. Where baseball, you have baseball, diamonds everywhere. You have football diamonds. You can play football in these small swatch of land. Basketball, you see basketball courts everywhere. You don't see hockey, I'm saying arenas, but you don't see any hockey fields out there to play street hockey or ice hockey or roller hockey or anything. And I think that that's part of the problem.
Yeah, Pags makes a lot of great points there. You know, soccer, I think you should add maybe to the Big Four instead of take away. I mean, hockey, I think, is a regional sport where very loyal. There's no more loyal fans in sports than hockey. But you know, soccer worldwide is as big as American football. Boxing worldwide is huge, especially in England. I mean, that's probably the number one sport there is boxing. And then you got to take in consideration MMA too. MMA has a very young audience, and it's very popular amongst the youth and around the world. So, I mean, I think maybe we should expand it instead of, contract it. Hockey definitely isn't as popular as these other sports. So, I would say maybe you should have at least a top 5 now, where you include boxing or MMA or soccer into that.
Mac, we're asking you to clean the house and you're creating more clutter. I wanted to add in more. Come on, Mac. I mean, what are you doing? No knock on the sport of hockey. It might be the best spectator sport. If you're a fan, you want to be entertained. Even if you're not a sports fan, you can follow it. 2 teams, whoever gets the puck in the net the most times wins. And they don't get the puck in the net an awful lot. So you can enjoy the game. Anyone could go, great spectator sport. But the answer is remove hockey from the Big Four. Don't refer to it as the 4 major sports. And I'm saying this from following hockey when I was a kid to the point where I don't follow it anymore. I think most people who are baseball fans, they like football. They have some football knowledge. They like basketball. They have some basketball knowledge. They might like hockey. They have no hockey knowledge. They don't know any of the players, hardly. Okay? You ask them, name one hockey player, Wayne Gretzky. You'll ask them today. I mean, come on. Hockey just is a great sport, but you can't let it latch on to the other 3. Most big sports fans are baseball, basketball, and football fans. They have a working knowledge of all 3. They don't have a working knowledge of hockey. Hockey is great. Don't let me diminish hockey, but the reality is, and I'll take myself as an example, I have limited hockey knowledge. I could have more hockey knowledge, but I would have to work at it. It would be a job to me. Oh, I got to study the rosters. I got to do that. In the NBA, on my own, I like looking at box scores. I like studying players. Same thing, NFL, I follow the games avidly. Baseball, I follow it, fairly well as also, but hockey, hardly at all. Hardly at all. I mean, I know the names, and this is someone, yours truly, who's been a sports fan a ton of years, and I can't latch it on. It's not a Big Four. It's an entity onto itself, a great entity. And I think it's to the point, maybe we should lump hockey with, Major League Soccer here with the franchises, both great sports. But Pags makes a great point. I think soccer might have a chance to take off maybe some teams. Maybe we could identify sooner than hockey, but I'm not even optimistic about that. I'll disagree with Pags on one point. Hockey has been marketed by ESPN, and it hasn't succeeded. They had that major contract. If ESPN couldn't take hockey to another level amongst fans, how else are they going to get there?
Bickles,
I want to say that when you think of hockey and you think of the heyday of hockey, we just recently, a couple days ago, was the 47th year anniversary. On Wednesday was the 47th anniversary of the Flyers beating the Russians. And when the Russians came and played every NHL team, and they beat every NHL team, they tied with the Montreal Canadiens, who wound up winning the cup that year. And they were playing the Philadelphia Flyers last, who were the defending Stanley Cup champions.
I remember that game, yeah.
Very iconic for a lot of reasons. Everybody hated the Flyers except that day. That day, everybody rooted for the Flyers. And that was the precursor to 4 years later in 1980 when you had the Lake Placid and USA going against. So when I think of hockey as almost like a wartime sport, that it has more national meaning than it does on a local level. And I feel that that's part of the demise of hockey right now, because you don't have that national feeling like you did back then. And I feel that's part of why soccer is picking up. And I think of the city of Atlanta. Atlanta, it's a team you could get tickets to go to that game anytime. You could football, same situation. However, you try to get to an Atlanta soccer game, and that's the toughest ticket in the city. You can't get there because the tickets are way expensive because they're sold out all the time in that stadium.
Well, can we say that maybe college football is in the top 4 now?
We're talking about
if you think about it,
big four sports.
That's what I'm saying.
Removed.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that college football is a sport. It's a huge sport. It's probably the 3rd biggest watched sport in the country. We know the players' names. We know the coaches.
It's football, but it comes under the classification of football, so it attaches to the NFL if you want.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if you're college football is now no way close to NFL football.
Said baseball, football, basketball, hockey, the big 4. I understand what you're saying, Mac. You can attach. You can separate if you want college football. Let me ask Doc this question. Doc, I assume you have some friends that are sports fans.
Yes.
Is that correct? If you're sitting with them talking sports, let's say you're sitting in a diner just talking sports, chances are you're going to talk baseball and they'll have knowledge of baseball, correct? Right?
Correct.
Chances are they'll have some knowledge of football, correct?
Correct.
Chances are they'll have some knowledge of basketball. They'll be able to
That's usually when I get up and stretch because
but you'll have some knowledge, some players. You'll be able to fake it, right?
I can fake it for about 10 seconds in basketball.
But your friend, hockey, you'll be lost completely.
I'll say Bobby Orr.
Right. There you go.
But let me tell you something interesting about hockey, because I have one of my sons has moved out to Hershey, Pennsylvania. He's a chiropractor out there and a phenomenal one. But and Hershey has a minor league soccer team, the Hershey Bears.
No, it's a hockey team.
A hockey team. Is that what I said?
You said soccer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant hockey. We're talking about hockey. They have a minor league hockey team, the Hershey Bears. And Pags in the beginning made the point that hockey is very expensive to go to the games, but the minor league games are cheap. And so my son, who obviously,
and I said it was an expensive sport to play.
But also to go to the games. So here's the point. My son, who never really followed hockey, because this is not a hockey house, I couldn't tell you the difference between, obviously when the Rangers were winning, we knew some of the guys on the team, we knew their names, and the Devils when they were winning, Martin Brodeur and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. But for the most part, we didn't pay any attention to hockey. He moves out there. There's a local professional team. He says, hey, let's go to a game. And he takes his wife and they go to a game. Now they're big time hockey fans, which are something in here about the fact that the minor league games are so inexpensive that they're able to draw people in. Now they've been watching for a couple of years. They're the Washington Capitals minor league team. And they're like, ooh, let's go watch the Capitals. And then they look at the tickets for an NHL game. And they're like, you know what? We're just going to keep watching the Hershey Bears. We're not going. Now, they've gotten my wife and I couldn't care less about hockey, but they've gotten my wife and I to go to a couple games. We're going in a couple weeks because they also do fun things. Like they have this teddy bear toss at these games. And last year, people threw like 53,000 teddy bears onto the ice. Wow. You have to wait until they score their first goal. And then everybody just throws teddy bears and stuffed animals on the ice and they donate them to local charities. So guess what? It was so much fun that we're going back for the teddy bear toss game in a couple weeks, and we're bringing tons of stuffed animals and we're going to throw them onto the ice. So, there's something in there about the way you market a team, a franchise, a sport, and there's something in there about the fact that it gets to a point where the average fan isn't going to pay the price to go to the game. So my son will pay to go to a minor league game, but the difference between the price of that minor league game and the NHL game in Washington is, and those are the players that he roots for, obviously, because they came from Hershey. It just becomes a bridge too far. And so there's something in there that's what's keeping sports at the big league level away from attracting more fans, because they've priced it to a point where it doesn't even make sense to go.
Well, teams price things according to the value of the team going to a game. I know a buddy of mine who owns businesses. He has a lot of the workers once a year. They get a ton of tickets, and as a reward for the workers of the company, they went to an Orlando Magic game. Okay, a small percentage of the workers had special tickets, like in kind of like a private box where we could eat before the game and order all the food we wanted free for the game. He had me come to the game there in Orlando. I'm not going to tell you what he paid for it, but the Orlando Magic was so bad. I mean, if this was Madison Square Garden, it would have been like 7 times the amount. Keep eating for free, have these great seats. But if the Magic start becoming really good, and actually they have been improving a bit, if they were ever an elite NBA team again, he's not going to get that deal. It's going to be raised up a few times, multiplied by whatever. But the teams kind of take advantage. It's that way. It used to be in sports, all tickets were priced the same. Now they're priced according to who the team is playing.
Interesting stuff. All right, so we have time for at least a couple more questions. This has always been one that's been an interesting one, especially for Yankee fans. Sorry, Pags. But the Yankees are, I think, the only team in professional sports that has basically a dress code, a grooming code, no beards, no long hair, etc. There was the great story about Lou Piniella and George Steinbrenner, and Lou Piniella back in spring training, back when the Yankees were in Fort Lauderdale, saying something to George Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner said to Piniella, "Cut your hair." And Piniella said, "Jesus had long hair." And Steinbrenner thought about that for a moment. He said, "Okay." And there was a lake out in center field. And he goes, "You walk across that water, you can have long hair." And so Piniella got a haircut. But is the question that the time for the Yankee grooming policy has gone away? Should they still make their players have cut hair and no beards? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll start. I think it's outdated at this point. You can speak to the player individually. You want him to be well-groomed. Look, let's say Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguar quarterback, he has this long hair. What happens if the Jaguars told him you have to cut your hair and he refuses to? What's going to happen? Are they going to cut him? I mean, if Aaron Judge wanted to put in his contract, I'm going to resign for the Yankees. I'll take a couple of million less a year, but I want to wear long hair. I want a beard. I want this. I want that. Did the Yankees relent? Did they lose Aaron Judge based on, a long hair thing? I mean, let's say it's a good citizen. The guy has a mustache. The guy has a beard, well trimmed. You want to take it away from him? I mean, certain of the players, they feel more sense of power if they have a beard. Like, what was that reliever, Al Grabowski, or whatever his name was? I mean, I just think it's an outdated thing from the 1970s that George Steinbrenner imposed. We live in a different time, a different era. You want them to just be neat. In the days of having players dressing on a team flight with a suit and tie and all that, I mean, we're past it. We might look back fondly on it, but I think the Yankee policy, its time is past.
Doc, let me ask you a question. I know you know, Jack probably knows too. Didn't Sparky Lyle have a mustache? And
you can have mustaches. Mattingly had a mustache. Goose had the big Fu Manchu. It's a beard.
So it's not total facial hair then.
You can't have a beard.
Right. And to me, why would you want to? I mean, this is a very small request that the Yankees are making of these ball players that are making multi-million dollars a year. and they're going to say, well, I don't want to because, because this is what is this some kind of freedom of speech or something? I don't know. But if you're being paid millions of dollars, I think it's a small request to play on the Yankees to shave. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So that's what I think anyway.
I will say that I like the fact that the Yankees are always well groomed and they present themselves well. There was that, what are they, the idiots, what they call themselves when the Red Sox won the World Series, and Johnny Damon and all those guys with all the long hair and stuff like that. They look like a mess. So there is a sense that you want your team to, maybe not everybody, but I do. It's nice that the Yankees look nice. I don't think the Yankees have been in a position yet where they've wanted a big-time player, like they got Giambi. When Giambi came, he got a haircut. I don't think there's been a player who's really pushed back against that. And I think that'd be interesting, as Jack is pointing out, like if Aaron Judge said, you know what, I'm not going to play unless you let me have a long beard. I mean, how do you handle that? Do you say we're going to take our superstar and say you're not going to play? I don't know.
Till he shaves, he won't play. That's what you got to do.
Right. But is it worth losing? I think what Jack's saying, is it worth losing games because of a policy about long hair and beards and stuff like that? So
why not? I mean, listen, the rule is the rule. I don't care if it's Aaron Judge or he's Willie Mays or Babe Ruth. The rule is the rule. I mean,
the rules change, Mac. Come on.
Oh, stop it, Jack. I mean, you shave, Jack. So I mean,
no,
I don't.
I have a difference of opinion here. Actually, I like the fact that they have this. I feel that it's I wish more teams would have it. I think it starts a certain culture. In the military, you're not allowed to have a beard. Now you can get requests and put it in if you have certain alopecia or whatever it is. You can.
Or if you're going overseas, if you're going overseas.
Yeah, there's certain, but for the most part, as a whole, you are not allowed to have, and you're not allowed to show your ears. So, like, you're not allowed to cover your ears. Your ears have to be shown. So there's a certain thought process to that, and that starts a certain culture that has to be adhered to. That if you can follow the basics of rules, the bigger rules are easier to follow. And that's what happens with the Yankees. Now, again, because we're a little bit more of a woke society, it's looked at as possibly frowned upon. Truth of the matter is that as woke as we get, I like the fact that this rule still exists.
Yeah,
and I would if Judge says, hey, listen, I want to grow a beard and I'm not going to sign here because I'm going to grow a beard. Bye.
There
you
go.
have to be able to enforce it. Let's say hypothetically.
Well, they have enforced it, Jack. There's no doubt about that. That's been enforced.
Yeah.
Okay, let me put it this way. Hypothetically, let's say Aaron Judge and his buddy Anthony Rizzo and Garrett Cole are upset with the Yankee organization for whatever reason, and they want to protest, and they all are growing beards and long hair. And let's say the Yankees call their bluff and they suspended them without pay or something. The players' union would appeal. The players' union would win. The Yankees can't enforce that. And
I don't know. I don't know if they would win because
it's actually part of the contract.
Yankees, this is the expectation. You're going to play for us. This is the expectation.
Yeah.
If you can put it in the contract that the player has to do it. I wasn't aware that was in the contract.
Yeah,
I would assume it is.
The player has to honor
it's funny
a
because the Yankees have a lot of different things that they do specifically. So, for instance, in my situation, when I went up to Yankee Stadium, they didn't allow me in with face paint. Now, I had to wipe it off and whatever. And it was mostly because literally the day before, somebody went in with face paint and caused a problem. And because they caused that problem, it was a social media thing, and the Yankees got made to look like a fool. They weren't going to get made to look like a fool twice. They made me take it off. However, it's in the rules.
Right.
That you are not allowed to go into Yankee Stadium with face paint. It's actually written there so that for these types of situations. I didn't realize that. I had no idea that occurred. I had known that the guy had gone there the day before, or I found out about it after the fact. I found out what had happened, saw the video, and then what happened was that he took all the face paint off, went back in there, made another video. The second video got bigger than the first video, and the Yankees saw it and were like, "Yeah, we're not going to get made to look like an ass." And that's what this guy did. I wasn't able to do it because of that. This year, I'm going up to Yankee Stadium again. I'm going to have preparation just in case I have to take it off. However, I expect to get in with the face paint. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm not going to cause an issue. And I hope that they would cause an issue. However, if they tell me to take it off, I'm ready to go and take it off because that's the rules. The rules are the rules, and it's in contracts. Players get to do a lot of different things and put whatever they want in contracts. John Kruk said that after every game, he wanted 2 cases of beer on ice in a cooler by his locker. That was in his contract. You know what? The Phillies had to make sure they had 2 cases of beer on ice in a cooler next to his contract after every game. So the Yankees going the opposite way and saying, yes, you have to. And I remember Giambi and Damon. When Damon came over, he shaved, got his hair cut. You know what I mean? You want to be a Yankee, you live by the Yankee rule. Or you don't be a Yankee.
There you go. I agree.
Jack, you have a last word on that one?
Yeah, why don't they all the Yankee players, they should be on a mission. They all grow long hair, beards, and they shave it when they win the World Series. That'll be the goal. They'll all shave it together to look good. That give them a motivation to shave it off.
Or what if we do the opposite, Jack? And we say, I'll tell you what, if you guys win the World Series, you can grow your hair as long as you want all winter long. And when we see you in February, just get a haircut and shave.
There you go.
All right. We probably have time for one more. I'll go first on this one. The Mets lost out on Carlos Correa, or the Mets backed out of Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa, obviously, free agent shortstop, signed with the Giants. They didn't like his medicals. They backed out. The Mets jumped in. They didn't like his medicals. They backed out, and the Twins jumped in and signed him back. And the question is, since the Mets now sort of seem to back away from a bigger contract with Carlos Correa due to the injury concern, do we feel that Steve Cohen is going to be slightly more conservative with his spending in the future? And here's my answer. I say absolutely not. And I applaud him. I stand and applaud and tell him, you keep spending as much money as you need because he wants to make the Mets world champions. And I think every fan wants their owners always to be that invested and that excited about putting the best team on the field. And I also believe that if Steve Cohen is willing to go above these luxury tax thresholds and pay whatever taxes he has to because he's spending so much money, he's a smart man. He's a businessman. And I don't think there's a smart business person out there that says, ooh, I'm going to lose money. I mean, just think about anybody you see. You see people going to Aldi and picking up the extra quarter when they get the quarter out of the shopping cart thing. Like, people want every last quarter, every last dollar they can get. And I don't think that changed just because you're a billionaire. So I think the Mets, even with what Cohen is spending, are going to make a lot of money. And I think he knows that. And he's willing to go above the number because he knows he's still going to make a lot of money. And I applaud the Mets for spending that money. And I wish the Yankees would be willing to say, if the Mets are spending $400 million, we're going to spend $410 because we're going to be better. That's my thought.
But my question is when he's on that luxury tax, he's paying like close to $200 million in luxury tax, is he not?
Something like that. Yep.
So what I wish that they could do is that $200 million, I mean, I assume that gets spread around to every team, right? That they make that part of the salary. That's part of the salary requirements. They have to spend that money in salary, specifically for the year that they're getting it. I guess it's not one of those situations where you can go year to year because he may decide not to be over the salary cap next year. But, when you have that luxury tax and you're hit with that luxury tax, that money should get spent on players in other organizations. That's how that should go. It should not be allowed to just be pocketed. And that's what like Oakland does. Oakland pockets that money. And that you have a guy out there where I think Moneyball was a little bit correct where they said they made him pay for the sodas in the soda machine. You know what I mean? That I feel that they should be forced to spend that money, not just pocket it.
Pags, and you make a good point there, but Doc, I disagree with you 100%. I mean, you're a businessman because you made all those billions of dollars because you made good investments.
That's correct. I agree.
The Mets aren't making good investments right now. They're not making.
See, that's where I disagree.
Listen. What they picked up? They picked up a pitcher, and they need more pitching to compete in that division. They need better position players to compete in that division. The Mets aren't going anywhere this year. Listen, you got to have some kind of plan that makes your team better. You just don't go out throwing money around to make your team better. You've got to have a plan in place, and you have to have funds that are designated for these positions for the players to fill. You can't just go out there and say, okay, I need a center fielder, so here's $100 million. That makes no sense.
I don't think the Mets are doing that.
No, they held serve this year. They lost DeGrom, got Verlander. That's basically going to be a wash going forward in all probability. They lost two of their other starters and replaced them with two others of the same caliber. They re-signed Edwin Diaz, their same guy, Brandon Nimmo. They held serve, so they have a very good team. But the thing with Carlos Correa, it kind of makes you wonder. Steve Cohen said, I'm not a drunken sailor when it comes to spending money. That he would let Correa actually walk. And if Steve Cohen was this bold guy, he'll do whatever he has to do. He doesn't give a darn with money. He'll spend whatever. Why didn't he just take his chances with Correa going forward? Okay,
I think you just answered the question, Jack. I think you're making my point. He realizes that Correa is a bad investment. He's just not spending money willy-nilly. He's a smart businessman. And he says, if I get this guy, odds are I'm going to make money because this guy's going to help my organization make money. If Carlos Correa was healthy, he said, this guy's going to make me more money. I'm willing to go over that luxury tax because it's going to pay off for me in the end. With Correa possibly being injured, they ran the numbers and they go, it's not worth it. We shouldn't go over a certain dollar amount for this guy because after that point, he's not worth it. And so he's not being just a willy-nilly guy spending money. He's making investments that he knows are going to end up paying him back. He's not throwing the money away. He's building the best team he can, and he's willing to spend as much as it takes to build the best team he can within reason.
Yeah, well, I see a point, but the Twins paid Correa $200 million for 6 years. Cohen could have rationalized, I'm paying him $200 million the first 6 years, $115 for the next 5. The price does go down. It's still high, but maybe, he'll be around to produce somewhat. I don't know. But I think the Mets were smart to back out, considering the medicals. But it remains to be seen, what Correa is going to do.
Great stuff, and I'm going to break the news here right now. Mac has just agreed to pay each of us the same exact contract that Carlos Correa gets to continue on this program for the next 6 years. Yeah. And I know Jack hurt his shoulder. He did the medicals. And Jack, you're if you move his arm hurts. So
I'm going to tell you,
you're still gonna get paid, Jack.
One game check. Listen. Just let us split one game check from Carlos Correa. One game, we'll split it, the 4 of us, and that'll take care of us for the year.
I think that would be pretty good. All right, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow you get the big football show. I'll be back Monday night with the Start Spreading the News show. Jack will be back Monday night with Glove Fist and all sorts of great shows throughout always. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching the Mac Jack, Pags, and Doc Saturday Debate Show. It's always a pleasure. Have yourselves a happy weekend.